Kaye. It's so great to connect with you.
I know, it's lovely. And thank you so much for having me today. This is brilliant.
I am so excited to finally meet with you and have you on the show today because, I personally, I'm sure you appreciate this too, but I love when my path crosses with someone who shares the same passion for wellness and design and, living with more intention, right? Specifically at home. And I know the Mind Body Home audience is going to really love this conversation too, because they're always looking for ways that they can live or be at home in a way that it supports them. And, there's endless ways in which the home can do that. And I'm sure we're going to get into a lot of it. So, this is going to be a great conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute pleasure. It's incredible sometimes where these things can lead, right? So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
I think a good place to start is a little touch on personal journeys because I think for everyone that's, we're all living some personal journey, right? I think a lot of people's perception, I don't know if that's the right word, or experience of home has greatly shifted or is at least shifting, especially post pandemic. I mean, I know that is certainly true for me. My journey with my own home and my career, right? That has all evolved since then. And even running my company, like a design company, there was always this missing piece, this disconnect running it from like the traditional sense. At the time I was going through my own like journey of self-discovery, and then the pandemic hit and that just like uprooted everything I'd known about home and interior design and all of that. And I started seeing
Mhm.
clients as well. Um, I remember, and I know I've shared this on the podcast before, I would say to my husband, if there was a way that I could combine my love for design with like self-development and emotional awareness, right? That would be totally in alignment. So I'm curious what your journey with home and design has been up until this point, and if maybe your perspective on how COVID has really shifted the game for so many people.
So it's just more as I'm listening to your journey, it resonates so much with me. And I think it started as almost an intuitive knowing when I was studying design that our spaces affect us. And but back then, like going back a couple decades now, uh, we didn't really have a language for it. I remember speaking with my classmates and saying, "I think this is a thing, guys," and they all were kind of nodding along. Yeah, yeah. And I was like, the best I could come up with is the psychology of space back then. And they're like, "Hey, yeah, there's still pieces about that. That sounds really great." Didn't end up doing anything with that, but it was just like this internal knowing that I carried with me. Um, Fast forward, I moved from Canada where I studied to the UK, where I spent this is where most of my career has been. Funny enough, I actually veered off I was designing for luxury retail and workplace. And I did that for years on a big building site, really big projects. And I actually stayed away from the home, which was really, really interesting. But I still carried this kind of knowing with me and this desire that there's something there. Workplace is unfortunate because they started to talk about wellness, well-being space. I think when we were first initially talking, we were talking about the Well Institute and all of these kind of being a well accredited professional, all this kind of stuff. These came about when I was in workplace and they were starting to talk about how spaces can affect us and impact our health well-being. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Um, Fast forward a little bit again, my own personal journey. Outside of work, I got more interested in health and my mental health and my physical health. I studied health coaching. I just wanted to really understand the bigger picture. And even when I was studying health coaching, they had a very small sliver of the environment and how that will impact your health. And I went, okay, there it is, right? Like it absolutely fits into the overall picture.
Right.
Um, and then my path weird again into editorial where I got to start putting some of these pieces together. And then where today, where I've gone almost full circle back to that healthy moment, where I can really see these pieces coming together. So that's in sh- in short, the shortest I can get it. Kind of that journey from school all the way to now of just us picking up these little pieces along the way, and then, but it was an internal knowing. It took me a while to kind of figure out how that looked. Well, your question about the pandemic, that was such a pivotal moment in this whole journey for me. And I think for a lot of people too, it just found their home in prepping. I think that was the moment for many where they realized just how much. So if they had this kind of internal knowing before, then they were faced with it on a daily basis because those were the walls they were in, right? For so many hours a day off that, and that was where their entire life was happening rather than just, just one little piece of it. So all of a sudden, everyone else kind of caught up with this idea that, oh, our homes really do impact us, our mental health, and then our physical health. People are starting to realize that piece as well. So I think that was a pivotal moment for a lot of people. And then in my own journey, might have seen me talk about this or heard me talk about this is the pandemic. Sadly, I had to give up my home. And that was such a, ooh, okay, that does mean something, right? When you have to, when you give it up and when you lose it. And it's, oh, wow, okay. There's more to home than we think. And I think that's where a lot of that, again, almost full circle of the student, me, who intuitively knew that this was a thing, to, adult me. He's like, oh, it's a thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can appreciate the losing of a home. I mean, I lost my first home that I bought to the economic crisis in 2008. Funnily enough, in Florida, right? We got caught up in the whole housing bubble here, purchased our first home, the housing market crashed, and we were faced with what do we do? And, for a lot of people, there's so much emphasis, at least here in the United States, about being a first time home buyer, right? Like it's sort of programmed into you that that's like the next step in life. And so that was a hard blow. So I totally appreciate losing your home, and what that feels like, especially after like a bankruptcy. I mean, we had to go through the whole financial uprooting of everything, and that's really what put me on my we'll call it my journey, right? Was just
Yeah.
financial wellness and well-being and how the home played a role in that. So I think a lot of people after the pandemic, like you said, yeah, you're staring at the four walls, and for so many people, it added stress and chaos and overwhelm to their daily lives, and now we're starting to figure out, "Oh, so that's why I feel the way I do. It's your environment," right?
100%. I don't know if you came across this as well, and this is going just outside of that from a little bit, but just often this sense of when you are uprooted like that, when you lost of community, that was my experience. I'm not sure if you've got with some other, that loss of community, the people around you, and that sense of belonging as well. So it's incredible that although you're in your place within, like just outside, your neighbors, your local coffee shop, or whatever it may be, right? There's just this incredible sense of belonging and your whole stuff. It holds you as a person. It holds so much of us. And without even realizing, you just kind of get on with our day to day, but it's that space that kind of holds us to me, it grounds us in that sense of place. And I'm not sure if you had a similar experience with yours.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, we decided to leave the state. So, we left everything and everyone we knew. I mean, we weren't from Florida. We had lived there for 5 years. Well, here, I'm here again, but at the time, we lived there for 5 years and, we were young, we were in our 20s, so friendships and having guests
Mhm,
over and, cooking dinner together. Yeah, so much happens within the walls of the home, and when you just suddenly lose that. It does. It's not just the loss of a home, it's the loss of, friendships, community, for some people, their identity, it depends on what they attach to, right? So it's clear that we share that our homes do than just look good. I mean, this is what I talk about
Yeah.
much, not just on the podcast, but just in my work, but that our homes should also feel good, that they have the capability to support our physical, our mental, our emotional wellness, while also being low impact on the environment. And sustainability is something that I know that you are very passionate about. So, for the audience or someone listening that wants to live more, mindfully, but also with intention, also supporting the environment, where do they even begin? What are some intentional choices they can start making?
I think it's a really interesting one for me because I look at the health of the planet and health of people. I feel like two sides of the same coin, essentially. Sometimes we can't support both at the same time. The pandemic was a really good example of that, where we have to prioritize people's health. Thinking about all the masks and all the plastic that went up and all the things, right? But that would vary its ways. And I think in many cases, examples of that in the home would be the items that we surround ourselves with, right? Now, some we have to, just out of necessity, just for a day run.
Mm.
But I think for me, it's beyond the necessity items. It's also about surrounding yourself with things that really that are intentional, right? And that have longevity. And I think that's the piece that for me is something that we can all do and be a bit more mindful of the items that we're bringing into home. That it's not about, oh, well, I like this cushion today, but if I don't like it months from now, no biggie. I'll just pop down and switch it out and buy it, or, it to me that doesn't resonate anymore. Like maybe when I was younger, it was exciting and you were decorating for the first time. But I think for me now, as an example, in my home, I've surrounded myself with vintage and antique pieces. And that again, very intentional. And it's a slow process. I'm not even done, not even close. To wait for the perfect vintage or antique piece takes time and patience that I never knew I had. So like, oh, I just want this done. And anytime somebody comes over, I'm like, okay, I'm aware I don't have a rug or an armchair yet. I haven't found them. Like I have to explain the whole thing when people walk through the doors. But I think that's really important because like my dining table was from the 1900s. I paired it with chairs from the 1970s. Those are decades old, right? Still going. There's longevity in that. There's sustainability in that. I know that both of these pieces, they have, when I am finished and ready to let them go and have another home, they absolutely can, right? The way they're made, it's incredible. New pieces aren't made like this. This table is solid. It's phenomenal. So they can have another life after me and try to learn their own journey and their own story. So I think that is something that we can all do is just be really intentional and mindful with the items that we're surrounding ourselves with and think about their longevity. I think that's important, but also beautiful word that we can all embrace and adopt. And it's that idea that they've come into my home already have a little story. I may not know what that is. You can see it in the patina. You can all feel it if it resonates somehow. They're mine now. They're part of my story. And then they will go on to be part of someone else's story. And I just think that's really incredible and really useful. I would say that. It's the items that, beyond the necessity items, you can do there too, of course. But the objects that you're able to surround yourself with that, stand the test of time. And how can you think about those pieces a little bit differently?
Yeah, I totally know what you're talking about. We have recently moved 3 times in the last year. We're finally here, and I think that we're stabilizing, but we decided to rent for a while because, purchasing a home right now just doesn't make sense. And when we sold our home, which was like our home, that was the home my babies were born in, so, we allowed things to pile up. We pretty much sold everything and just moved with one little pod. Whatever fit in the pod came with us. And so now I'm doing that too. I'm being very intentional about what I put in my home. And like you, I have spaces that is like, this really needs a table, but I haven't found the right table, you know? So I totally get it. And I think that at least here in the US, there's this get it done. I want it done now. We're like very impatient, right? So it's been almost like a journey for me to like stop that and move into a more intentional way of living. And it really starts with the things that we consume and how we buy, what we purchase, what we bring into our homes in the first place. Because, in the work I do, I do a lot of clutter healing and people having to get rid of so much. This is like the first step towards healing that. Yes, you can clean out your home, but beyond that, it's about what are you bringing in the first place, right?
Well, it's so interesting because I've reached quite a few times too, and I'm also a rental in a transition place, we'll call it. But in many of my places, I have been that person. I hold my hands up. We're just like, I just want to get it done as quickly as possible because I don't want, I can't live in a suitcase anymore. Like, I just need my clothes to have a home. And in the UK, we don't often have the built-in wardrobes that we do in North America. So it's just about thing of it. Oh, I just need a new dresser, a chest of drawers, and all these things. And it was a lesson for me in this place to just pause with no, no.
I believe the right pieces are waiting for you because they hold our energy, right? I mean, we give them life. So, yes.
Cool. Just one more in depth. I have the gorgeous century sideboard over there, and the couple that I purchased that from, it was from the 1960s, and it only had one previous owner, and that was from a grandmother. And
Wow.
she spent, I know. As soon as I heard that, I'm like, oh my God, what's this doing with brown energy? Like, this just feels so beautiful for me. And she was often in turn really happy to sell it for me because she just felt like I was the right person to appreciate that. But wait, that piece is only had one. Wow, like that's incredible. And very cool grandparents, by the way, too, all that originally. Love that. Love that for them. Look, I'm telling you this story, right? It resonated with me. I hope it could resonate with someone else, of course. But I just think that's a beautiful thing. To have these pieces and have these stories, right? And then I'll pass them on to someone else, and it will have my story in it. So
Yes. It's beautiful. Yeah, I think, getting back to sort of making that connection between home and well-being, right? And that's the goal of this podcast, right? Is to make that connection for people, um, and make it more of a mainstream thought process, right? Because I don't think that it is. I think that there's still such a disconnect between home and health that I hope this conversation is going to start inspiring people to do that. And one of the ways you had mentioned, vernacular architecture and reconnecting our homes to the land and the seasons. And of course, I love this because we talk a lot about the elements here on the show. So I'd love to hear your perspective for the audience. Like, what is vernacular architecture and like how does this relate to both health, well-being, and sustainability?
course, yeah. So vernacular architecture is essentially in its most basic form is building to the climate and the local materials, local geography, that kind of thing. I just think, I mean, it's not new by any means. It's not a new concept at all. I just feel like in a lot of places we've gotten away from that. But the states have incredible examples of this. So if you were to think with New Mexico, Arizona, how they build with adobe, those types of houses, that is exactly that type of architecture, right? So really building with local material, building true to climate. So that would be a really good example right there. And I just think that for me, I really want to get back to the savers, but really kind of embracing old students. And in the UK, it doesn't have as much light as what I grew up with in Canada. So I'm from the very far north of Canada where they would have a similar problem, but the UK is quite far north and there's a lot less light here and the weather is dark, really dark. And Scandinavian countries, they do this beautifully, I think, would be really other great example of this. If they build almost knowing that they have those lack of light and their homes are built to just maximize as much natural light as you possibly can get, right? We we know that, well, it's anybody that studies well-being or is in that kind of that arena, there's a lot of talk about light, circadian rhythms. So I think our homes could play a role in that, right? Not just in our artificial light, when we talk about that, but this specifically, we could really harness more natural light. And again, we're really building to that land. You're really looking at the climate, you're looking at the seasons, you're looking at the light, all of those things. Like we'll have time to look about a bit, like bring that back, you know? And I I hold my hands up. I don't have the answer of how you do that on a really large scale, right? Is that would be someone, okay, that sounds great, Kay, but how to do that for a million homes? I'm not sure yet. Give me a moment. But I think it's worth just bringing that conversation back. As I said, it's not new. It's not new. Places around the world built to those that ethos all the time. Just think that there's other places in the world that could benefit from going back to some of those concepts and really looking at some of that, building seasonally, building local materials, building to the local climates, will really, really go attention to the orientation of your home, and can maximize that natural light, I think. And also just like that connection with the outdoors as well. Even putting our big city, again, this is not a form that load plays around won't do this, but I'm obsessed with the idea of internal courtyard. Even in the UK, people would say, oh, okay, but yeah, but there's grim, right? And again, it's not new. Loads of places around the world, they tend to be places with warmer climates, fair enough. But you can get some gorgeous weather. Today is a perfect example. And I just think that if you had the idea of connecting more of your home to the outside, even in places that might surprise you with the climate, I just so there's something in that. And we spend so much of the time inside, but how would that look if, just having as much connection to the outside is absolutely possible. And I think there's something really beautiful in that. And it could just be looking at the way the home is orientated, building, internal courtyards. So they're a little bit, protected from the elements, depending on your climate, that kind of thing. So still respecting the climate. Just really looking how we can connect ourselves to as much nature as possible. I think it's really key here as well.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think people, human beings are doing this naturally. Like they want to infuse that into their life. You're seeing such a huge movement in, biophiliac design, bringing the outside in because I think as a humanity, we're craving that. We're craving getting back to being outside. Like you said, there's no solution. We've built these cookie cutter homes, in these communities and developments. Like there's no way to really rectify that in the immediate. Um, Hopefully we can get back to more of that kind of building, but just bringing nature in as much as you can, whether it's just through plants and more intent. We're talking about intentional decor, just intentional art pieces that mimic landscapes and the outdoors are just such easy ways to like bring that in.
That it's so true. And I think another way, and like you said, like if the home's already there and there's nothing we can, and you're making that up for, or you're not able to, or you don't want to, whatever, do a massive renovation project. That's not for everyone. It's not on the price for everyone. Um, but there are things that you can do just with your internal rapport, right? Bringing in natural material. So again, we're, going full circle to what we were talking about at the beginning, we're being intentional and mindful about what you're bringing into your home. Think about some of those natural materials, right? So if you're looking for a raw, beautiful woolworm, again, from a responsibly sourced company. But again, these are things that you can do are just surround yourself with natural material. They speak to our senses. You want to touch them, they're tactile, right? Or, bring in timber, bring in so wool, timber, linen. I mean, this is the perfect time of year to start talking about linen, right? And all of these different things. So next time you are ready to purchase something for whatever reason, start thinking about some of these things. And I mean, they offer have it's bringing nature in, but also helping to improve the air quality of your home, bringing in these natural materials. That's a really big one that we're hearing more and more about the air quality inside versus the air quality outside. Something that's actually very worse inside. And again, a lot of that is because of the stuff we're surrounding ourselves with. We're again bringing those natural material. You mentioned plants, that's a great one. And for cleaning the air, they help us too. They're brilliant. They just do so much for us.
Yeah.
But again, it's just as you were saying, it's that full circle, just being really intentional with some of the items that we're surrounding ourselves with and started to think, okay, well, nature. I want to surround myself with nature outside, but also inside, right? And what that can do for my physical health, the air quality, my mental health, the sensory, I'm touching. It just feels good to be around it, right? We truly know that feels good.
Yeah, they're just the few things you're mentioning, just air, water, you know, it's
Yeah, well, I
some of
don't
it
even do
like what
the
we
lights, all these
right?
elements. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's like it's our basic needs, right? If those aren't met, then we're not thriving.
No, and the beauty is, because I don't want to overwhelm anyone with that, but the beauty of that is that your home can support all of those things, right? I think that's really, it feels empowering and exciting. And I hope I want other people to feel that way too, rather than, oh my goodness, I need to change my whole house.
Yes.
The intention.
It's not the intention. No, not at all.
No.
Maybe we'll end with that is like, what are some things we can do, like small things to just start making the step in that direction? You had mentioned like how mindful spaces improve our lives. And I think we've touched on it a little bit, but really getting to the root of like that physical and emotional and mental well being. Like, what is it about our home that really contributes to that aspect of our health and wellness?
There, I would say one of the biggest things is connection. And it has the power to be the foundation of our connection to self, but then also the connection if we live with others, to those family members or relatives in your home. Let's see. I would think that's really exciting and just how we set our things up. Right. We can really, again, it's going back to being really intentional about it, but really looking clear on how you use your home and how you want to use your home. And was to be something as simple as making space for a dining table. Now, I know a lot of dining rooms have fallen out of fashion over the years, but I'm going to put my hand up and think, well, maybe that's not the right room, but maybe there's somewhere else in the house what could be. And can you imagine getting back around that table? And that's a moment for you and your family and your partner, whoever you're with, or even just yourself, to connect with yourself. A moment after a busy day, and it's just you to really sit down, have a moment with a meal, right? And eat intentionally. And that had a knock-on effect, right? Because you're connecting with each other or yourself, a moment to really eat mindfully, right? Which I call the brain nutrition. So, and that's from a table, right? Like, I think that's really, really common that people can have that impact. But again, it possibly it's in a lot of people's homes and they feel that they should be to use it, right? So again, that's going back to being really mindful about how you want to start your day and how your home can support that. So we're saying that any daily ritual, any behavior, any of those things that you'd like to build in. It could be a chair by a window that doesn't exist yet. You've noticed that you have this beautiful pocket of light that hits right first thing in the morning, but it's empty. Maybe there's space for a lovely chair, and that becomes your morning routine or just having a cup of tea or having a moment to journal or meditate. That's your space, right? It's carving out, it's really just maybe looking at your home a little bit differently. So, okay, these are the habits I would like to create. This is how I would like to connect with my family, connect with myself. You know, where can I bring that in? What changes can I make to make that happen? Right? The bedroom is another perfect example. It gets filled with lots of stuff. Okay? But if you strip that all back to its most basic form, it can support beautiful night's sleep the way that we design our bedrooms. Right? Or that could be a place for self. Again, just where we're gonna share a corner and that becomes your place. Maybe it's your quiet space, maybe your family, or just for yourself, whatever that can look like. But these are just little mindful moments where your home can help kind of support any of those things that you would like to create.
Yeah, I love it. And you touched on a question I was going to have for you, anyways. one connection, specifically to self too, and the bedroom, because I think that I'll say a lot of clients, they're starting this journey of home, creating a home space. Even if they have a family, it's a very personal decision to get guidance from someone to help them create what they're longing for. So I always start with the bedroom with clients because sometimes the whole home can feel like overwhelming, right? And there's too much
Mhm.
foot traffic, especially if it's a large family. You can't control the fact that, your husband sets all of his belongings down on the counter every day when he gets home from work, right? Like, you can't control those things. You can't control your kids and all their socks on the floor, right? So it's like these little things that maybe, like, frustrate you about home. So the one
Yeah.
I always tell them to start with is the bedroom because it is that connection to self. It is the most intimate space in the home. It is the part of the home that's sort of off limits to anyone that you welcome into your home. So it's sort of this private oasis. And, I tell them create like almost this sacred sanctuary for your bedroom. And I love to give them little tips and tricks. I'd love to hear what your suggestions are for the bedroom specifically.
Bedroom specifically, well, I would absolutely get rid of as much in there as you possibly can. So it just tends to be a bit of a dumping ground. I mean, who opened their home journey, if you will, has had an exercise bike in the corner with clothes thrown over the top, right? So it's stuff like that. And say, okay, again, look at the whole house, how in those items we moved into other areas, and just make it as clear as we possibly can so that it really is just about sleep. Um, but it shouldn't be filled with all the clutter. I think that's possibly one of the first things and one of the easiest things that anybody can do that doesn't require any money. You can go in and just start sorting through some things, right? And then the next thing I would say would be to get rid of the tech. And that is the next level to that clearing everything out. I mean, I appreciate that sometimes people have digital clocks or people swear they have to use their phone next to their bed, all of this kind of stuff. Please put that on airplane mode. That ruins all your health metric apps. I don't know, but please free. So yeah, that would be the next thing. Is just clear out as much of the tech, like TV in the bedroom. I don't know. There may be a few people that go, no, that's not going to be a half from Upland, but fair enough. It's your lifestyle, and it's ultimately what makes you happy. Not me, but those would be my top things. Or just clear out as much as you can and just make it just as restful as possible. And then you can start looking at the layering and the natural materials, dropping the temperature, expanding the shower, cooler bedroom, better sleep, protecting. It's again getting all the everything involved, like your comfort, the air quality that will good circadian rhythm, get your window situation with drapes or curtain story or lines or whatever you need to do to sleep and make sure that the light is right. All of those things will layer in over the top. But I would say the first thing is clear it out as much as you can.
Sometimes I feel like I harp on clutter too much. So I'm happy to hear it's the first line of defense from your perspective too.
Well, I also think that, as I said, it doesn't require money. Like it's something that you could do see one thing right now. And it's also something that you could start right away, right? Even if it's just one item to start.
Yep, remove what's not necessary. Second is rearranging and repurposing, and I think that's another way to bring in that sustainability aspect too. If
Yeah.
you're not building a house or you're not totally prepared to begin an entire homesteading project, right? But because, for some people, the family isn't on board with that, right? I
Yeah.
against that a lot. Like, there's so many things I wanna do, but it's like sometimes, people are like, "That sounds like a lot of work," you know? Um,
Yeah.
but these are just little things to just take that first step.
And it's like that chair that I was mentioning, that beautiful block of light. Maybe that's in your bedroom, and all of a sudden you create a little corner in there. Maybe it's a chair that was somewhere else in your home, and all of a sudden it has a new life and a new purpose in your bedroom. So, yeah, it absolutely is. We were just talking about the bedroom, and it is looking at the full home, and it's like, well, what do I already have? And maybe that could work better in another place, right? So, yeah, it absolutely isn't. um, about getting all new things all the time is that it's really just about looking at what you want to achieve, and what you already have. I think that's really beautiful. Mhm.
Well, Kay, I think you and I could probably sit here and talk about this all
Uh,
day.
I think we could. Oh, that's we could. There's so many more things you could say.
I
It's
know
a yeah. It's such a great topic.
it is. For anyone listening that wants to follow you or find out more about you, where can they do all the things?
All the things. My whole thing I love again. I'm looking at a lot, I think, in this conversation. I'm not the best with keeping up with Instagram, but probably my website for now. And I'm assuming that'll be in the show notes. So that would be probably the best place for now, just to keep up with everything I'm up to.
Well, thank you for your time and your expertise. This was, for me, for sure, a beautiful conversation, and I definitely know the audience. I think they're gonna be ready to take some steps with the bedroom space. That's always a favorite place for the people to start.
Thank you so much for having me. I do think that we could probably talk and talk and talk, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Kay. You can learn more about Kay at her website, kaypreston.com. The link, of course, is in the show notes. I hope you enjoyed this year's summer guest series. A huge thank you to all of my guests. Although I only rolled out 4 conversations this summer, each and every one were intentionally selected, and sometimes less is more. If you missed any of the previous guest episodes, be sure to go back and give them a listen. Again, I hope to see you signed up for the seasonal planning workshop later in August, and take advantage of my newsletter to be notified of all the things I have coming up. They have all been especially created with you in mind, and so I'm super excited to be sharing all of that with you very soon. I'll be back later this fall with new Mind Body Home episodes. In the downtime, please follow or subscribe anywhere you listen to your podcast. And if you feel called, please leave a positive review or share this and or any episode with a friend. Until next time, my friends, so much love and gratitude.